Hello, I'm Simon Armitage. I'm a Professor of Quaternary Science in the Department of Geography at Royal Holloway, University of London, and I'm here to talk about a paper we recently published in the journal Nature describing the earliest human burial in Africa. This research was carried out as part of a large international team led by the Max Planck Institute in Jena, Germany, and also the National Museums of Kenya. In our paper, we described the burial of a child who was about 2.5 to 3 years old when he or she was buried at an archaeological site called Pangia Saidi in Kenya. And critically, this burial took place about 78,000 years ago, making it the oldest human burial in Africa. My role within the project was to determine the age of the burial, and I did that using a technique called luminescence dating. Luminescence dating allows us to determine the amount of time that's elapsed since sand grains were last exposed to sunlight. So I analysed several thousand sand grains from the grave fill and also from the surrounding soils and demonstrated that they were all last exposed to sunlight about 78,000 years ago, which gave us an age for the grave. The child who was discovered in the grave was nicknamed Mtoto by the excavators because that's Swahili for the child. When Mtoto was first discovered, the bones were very, very fragile, and in fact the excavators didn't really know exactly what they were looking at when they discovered the first few bones, but they recognised it was potentially special. Because of this, they took the entire grave out as a single block of sediment and exported it from Kenya to a specialist laboratory in Spain where it was excavated under laboratory conditions. That excavation demonstrated that the child was lying on its right-hand side in a flexed position and that it had almost certainly been shrouded and the head cushioned during the burial process. So clearly quite a lot of care had been used placing this child within the burial. At the same time, a French team was working on sediments from within the burial to determine whether it was deliberate or not. And they used soil chemistry and also microscopic analysis of soils from within the grave and from the surrounding sediments to demonstrate both that the grave had been deliberately cut, and then once Mtoto had been placed in the grave, it had been refilled very quickly afterwards. So clearly what we have is a deliberate burial of a child 78,000 years ago. As I've already said, the Mtoto burial is the oldest burial that we know of in Africa. But there are a couple of others that are a little bit younger. And interestingly, both of those burials involve young individuals. And this tends to suggest special treatment of children relatively early in our species' history.